So the Dallas Mavericks have themselves the 5th pick in this NBA draft, which means that there will be 2 players outside of the big 2 that are going to be gone, so that makes it a little more tricky to talk about them here, because I could talk about why they should go with Jaren Jackson Jr. for 5 minutes, and then he could be gone to Memphis or Atlanta, and then everything I say is a wash. So the biggest thing I can do at this point is just kind of say what each of the potentials would do for them, I guess. The one thing I want to talk about first is Dennis Smith Jr., though. And I do think he is good enough to where you can kind of pick and choose a little bit with the guys here and say, okay, well, who would be the best fit with our point guard? And I think Dallas, them and the Suns, I think, are the 2 teams who have the most luxury in doing this in the top 5. I mean, sure, Mike Conley's good for the Grizzlies, but he's kind of hit his ceiling as being this very good player, whereas I think Dennis Smith and Devin Booker have like all NBA potential here. So the guy that you pair with them, I think, matters a little bit more. So if we start with, like, let's say Marvin Bagley, for example, right? Let's say the Hawks and the Grizz, they would rather go with some safer picks and not Bagley's potential, right? Because he's got to figure it out on both sides of the floor, really, and surround his elite athletic game as a power forward / center. He'd be a great pick and roll option with Dennis Smith Jr. Rick Carlisle knows how to just get big guys in situations to either receive lobs or get open cuts to the basket and all that. I mean, we saw Nerlens Noel before he started pouting and not playing hard and eating hot dogs that Rick Carlisle drew up some creative stuff for him. I remember there would be plays when he would screen like 3 times before rolling to the basket, and amongst all that, it would confuse the defense about, oh, do we switch here? What do we do? And then Nerlens gets himself a basket, right? Marvin Bagley, to me, has that kind of potential with Dennis Smith. Now, the one thing that could hurt that combination is Bagley's jumper. It's not totally there right now, right? And Dennis Smith's outside jumper isn't there either, and it could be kind of rough spacing if both of them want to go to the basket every time they're involved in a pick and roll. But, that could work out anyway, just because Bagley seems like he could finish a lot of stuff around the rim, as well as he could be one of those guys where as long as you just throw it up in his general area code, he's going to finish the lob for you, and he's probably going to be faster than a lot of NBA bigs. So there might not be a huge problem there, but I guess potentially there could be with spacing. And then defensively, I mean, you just have to work with him, I trust Rick Carlisle to teach a young big how to defend, but ultimately the player has to get there. You could have as much coaching as possible, but it's a risk with Bagley. It's pretty well documented at this point with him. And when I'm saying a lot of these pick and roll things with him, I think a lot of that also applies to Mo Bamba and then Jaren Jackson. But with Jackson, there could be more pick and pop plays, so that could be cool. A bit more creativity in your offense, and we've seen for the last however long Dirk has been playing under Rick Carlisle, that Rick knows how to get Dirk open. So now, sure, Jaren Jackson's not as good as Dirk, but you get it. If you're a big who can shoot and you're playing under Rick Carlisle, you're going to get some open looks, so that's a good thing. And we could also say with Mo Bamba, it seems like he wants to develop the three-point shot, so that could also apply, but it probably would either never get to the level that it would with Jackson, or it would take quite a while. And I think you could say that about Bagley as well. Now, I guess if we can dive into Mo Bamba a little bit more. I mean, the big question with him is just how well is he going to defend on the perimeter, because it seems like he's going to be fine defending the paint. And Carlisle had a lot of success with Tyson Chandler, but Tyson Chandler also had the luxury of not playing in the league now where teams are pulling the centers out of the paint, right? So Jaren Jackson may end up being the best defender between himself and Mo Bamba. It'll just be interesting to see what Rick Carlisle, who I assume has a bid in who they draft, where would he want to go with that, right? It also depends on who's going to be available once again. So, I mean, between those three guys, I actually kind of think that Carlisle might be able to get the most out of Mo Bamba, who also, I mean, to me, seems like he has the physical traits to defend on the perimeter pretty well. I don't know, it seems to be pretty split on that. Some people think he has no chance. Other people think he has a decent chance. There's a video on Twitter I saw where he was defending perimeter players like really well. Now that was just a couple plays here and there. For all I know, he was terrible the rest of the time. But I don't know, Rick Carlisle with a big who already is a pretty decent defender, to me that's just a winning formula, you know? But then again, Jaren Jackson's good on defense as well, so I don't know what I'm talking about. The other thing that could be interesting, if Dallas got a big who could defend like perimeter players well, is that Harrison Barnes already pretty okay at it. And I think Dennis Smith Jr., while he wasn't so good defensively this season, I think he can be good defensively. So that could be the beginnings of a pretty solid defensive team. So there's all that. Now, if they wanted to go in like a Michael Porter Jr. direction, I mean, in terms of spreading the floor, I'm sure it could work, and Harrison Barnes is definitely a better power forward than he is small forward. So in that case, it could work. You could be a decently athletic team, and you could have yourselves like a quality 1-2 offensive punch with Dennis Smith and Michael Porter Jr. as well. I think that could also move Harrison Barnes to where he should be, which is like the third option, because, like, okay, he put up however many points he's put up for these Mavs, like 19, 20 a game, something like that. But number one, low 20s, high teens is not good enough if you're the number one option. That's the first thing. The second thing is he hasn't been totally efficient while doing that. I think from the field he's been okay, but like his three-pointer hasn't been as good, and he's nowhere near good enough of a playmaker to really take on that much offensive load. Well, to his credit, Barnes actually shot 36% from three this season, but he's not a number one option, okay? He's really like a number three who's just been miscast for the last 2 years with Dallas. So if you have Dennis Smith as your number one and Porter as your number two, well, then you got something with Barnes as your third guy, you know? Then you could run more like stuff for Porter and Smith, and then Barnes could just profit off of those two grabbing a lot of the attention from the defense, you know? And it could allow him to get some more open threes where, if I'm not mistaken, with the Warriors, he was pretty okay. Yeah, I mean, he never shot a whole lot of threes with the Warriors, but he did creep up to over 40% like 2 years in a row. So, you know, getting open more often is good. I should say that one of the years he shot like 39%, but you get it. Now, I think an interesting thing is, what if Rick Carlisle falls in love with like Wendell Carter Jr., a guy who seems like a head coach's dream, where he's basically Al Horford. Like, Jaren Jackson is like the more athletic Al Horford, whereas Wendell Carter is basically Al Horford in terms of like how athletic he is and all that. Seems like a dude who can just be an awesome piece for a team. And given that this is the 5th pick now, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's far down enough to where all the obvious picks, at least in Dallas's mind, are gone. I guess it's an idea. I'm sure that type of dude would fit in well with Rick Carlisle. And then from then on, you're looking at like Mikal Bridges, which I think Dallas could still really use like a second star, and doesn't seem like he's going to be that. And before he's like the 3rd best player in this draft. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know, call it a gut feeling, but I keep going back to the idea of Rick Carlisle with Mo Bamba, and that just sounds like a winning combo to me. Maybe it's just because I love Tyson Chandler so much. He's like one of my favorite players of all time, and I just want to see that again. But something about that. But then again, when I think about it objectively and take the sentimental value out of it, I say to myself, well, all those same things can probably happen with Jaren Jackson Jr., but there's also a decent chance he's going to be off the board at this time. So, yeah, maybe my pick is Mo Bamba because I assume Jaren Jackson's going to be gone. And then if they're both still available, you go with Jackson, but Then I also think about how Michael Porter Jr. kind of makes this whole team's offense make sense, and I don't know, okay? I don't know what I'm talking about, but we got through 10 minutes, so that's going to do it.